When you say a good tomato plant, how do you shop for a tomato plant? What should you look for?
Well, the ideal is probably is no doubt a 5-week-old plant where the buds are formed, and you can see the buds on the little plant. It might be 4 to 5 inches tall, have that much leaf spread, and just have buds, not open flowers, present on the plant.
It looks like it may be warming up this week. Do you still need to use the tomato cages with the plastic around them if you're going to plant tomato plants out this week?
Yes, I think that it would still be a great benefit to the early growth of the plant. First of all, in helping it survive. There's a great shock, even if you put a potted plant out. It's the transfer from the greenhouse into the dry, open air in the wind. So it would help from that standpoint, and our night temperatures are still dipping down in the 40s and low 50s, and it will help to protect the plant from that cold temperature because it'll be 5 to 10 degrees warmer inside the cage, inside the plastic enclosure.
It looks to me from looking here at the plants, the tomato plants we have in our alley garden, that these plants survived quite nicely with that protection.
Yes, there was a little bit of injury to the top leaves where the ice fell in on the plants. It just literally killed them from the cold, but there was very little hail damage. There was very little ripping of the leaves and wind damage at all.
We might take a look at some of these larger plants. They look,
yes,
they fill up half the cage already. When was it that we planted these?
The first week in April. Yeah, so they're a good 5 weeks. They're five weeks inside the cages now. And there are a lot of fruit set. There are a lot of blossoms. The little small fry plant there probably has about 30 open blossoms on it, and they're doing very well.
What do we have? One of each variety that does well in this area?
Well, there are some varieties that do well in this area, but we also have a few that we want to learn more about, like the Early Girl. It has been advertised as being a very early producer, only 45 days from setting the plants. It is not going to behave quite that early in our climate here, but it's going to come close. We will no doubt be picking some tomatoes from it by the 1st of June.
This plant down here is amazing to me. We have 12 tomatoes on it already, and it's just a little bitty plant. What's the variety?
This is the patio hybrid. It's a little potato leaf or bush tomato. I'll take the cage off just so that we can, we've got twins in here, 2 tomato plants. And they're doing very well. They like it in that cage. Got a heavy fruit set already. These leaves are a little tougher than your regular tomato varieties, and they weren't hurt at all by the hail.
And what's the variety of this?
This is patio hybrid. It's a tough little tomato plant. They never get very tall, but they do set. They're resistant to the cold and wind. The blossoms set quite well even in our adverse spring weather. So they're very good for this area.
Is there anything special that people should be doing right now to take care of the tomato plants that they have out?
Yes, as soon as you see fruit setting on the first cluster or first truss, it's a good idea to side dress the plants, as we call it. Side dress them with nitrogen, and I use ammonium nitrate because it's readily available here locally, and it's also in the form, the nitrogen is in the form that is immediately available to the plants. As soon as it goes into water solution, it can be taken up by the roots and used in the plant.
Will you do that now so
yes.
that we see how to do it? Comes in pellets?
It's just little pellets, yes. Prills, as they're called. And we'll use 1 tablespoon per plant. And I'll sprinkle the prills of the ammonium nitrate around the plant. You don't want to get it on the foliage. If any falls on the leaves, knock it off. About 1 foot out, in a distance, starting about 6 inches out from the stem, and in a band about 6 inches wide around the circumference of the plants.
And what does this do for the plant?
It stimulates additional leaf growth. The plants, as soon as they start to set fruit put a great deal of nitrogen into the amino acids and proteins that are formed in the fruits. And I'm just stirring this in. And when those fruits start to form, there's a tremendous drain on the nitrogen in the plant itself, and it's a good idea to side dress because we've had some leaching from the rain, and we need to replace that nitrogen and keep the plant growing. If we don't do that, the plant will simply stop putting on new foliage. It will mature those fruits that are there and will not put on any new foliage. Okay, I'm just stirring this in very shallow, you see, just about an inch.
How often would you do that?
With these, I do this every time you see a new, on these little patio hybrids, every time you see a new hand of fruits, which would be about every 2 to 3 weeks. With the other varieties, about the same, but as they grow faster, about every 2 weeks. And you can maintain the growth right up into midsummer.
And then do you water that
Yes.
immediately?
Yeah, we ought to put a little water on it to, the nitrogen, the ammonium nitrate, has to be dissolved in water, and it goes into solution that way, and then is taken into the roots, through the roots of the plant.
One final question, Roland. Is it still necessary to maintain the plastic around the cages even though the weather appears to be warming up?
I would say so, yes. The temperatures are going down at night, still down in the high 40s, low 50s. But during the daytime, as soon as it starts going up over 85 degrees, up in that range, then the cage ought to be pulled up so the air can come in the bottom, you know, for ventilation.
Just a few inches up?
Yes, just like this one over here. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but that cage there is lifted up about 4 inches so that cool air can go in through the bottom and let the hot air go out the top.
Roland, thank you very much.
Nice to be with you, Alice. Well, the tomatoes are coming along very fast. In fact, you can see that even though they were hit a little bit by the hail, those early fruits are really getting pretty large now, and some of them are going to be ripening within another, I'd say 2 weeks or so.
I noticed that you've taken off the plastic from around the cages.
Yes, with the very warm days that we're going to have, we've got to remove that plastic shield because it will cause an intense heat buildup inside there. Whenever the temperature goes higher than about 92 to 95, then the blossoms are likely to drop off instead of setting, so we don't want that to happen.
Just now setting out their tomato plants do that. Would they go ahead and start with the plastic, or can you just start with the cage itself?
You could start with the plastic, but just as a shield, using it as a windbreak. Don't put it all the way down around the sides. These windbreaks actually are all that is needed from now on. I would say concentrate on getting a windbreak. You don't need the plastic.
I'm hoping we'll be harvesting tomatoes before we know it. Dr. Roberts, thanks again.